we need to mine it. Thank you.
Casey, I think maybe you could reiterate the amount of water.
Yeah, so the amount of water is roughly equivalent to a 12-ounce bottle of water within a cubic meter of lunar soil. But this, instead of being at a volume, this is spread across the surface of the moon. Whether or not it's usable for mining, I will turn over to Jacob.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. And this is, this is the core part to the question, right? And I think several of us hinted at this, is that we really need to understand more about the water that's present. So we need to understand what form it's in. We need to understand how much of it there is. And this complement of approaches, of measurements that we can make, some of them look at just at the surface. Some can look deeper below the surface. Some see water in different forms than in other forms. We need to gain that broad picture of what the resource stock really is at the South Polar region. We also need to understand how we can not only approach it as a resource, but how we can also use it as a science resource, because that ice also carries with it much information about evolution of the solar system, evolution of the sun, evolution of the moon-Earth system. So, it's hard to answer the question straight up, is this discovery going to provide us with enough water to do anything specific? It's part of a process in moving forward and understanding volatiles and volatile cycles on the moon. And this is an important discovery because now we know that that water does exist outside of some of these places in these dark craters that are really hard to get into and really hard to operate in. So this might be an avenue for us to get to water a little bit easier.
Thank you. Next, I believe we have Joey Roulette from Reuters.
Hey, question for Paul and Jacob. It's kind of similar to what was asked before, but what will it take to know whether the water molecules can be turned into usable resources to support the Artemis program, like drinkable water, ingredients for rocket fuel, etc.? Do you think we'll know this from more remote observations, or will we have to rely on future robots or probes on the ground on the moon? Thanks.
I can give my first shot at answering that question. We already listed off a handful of additional payloads that are planned to go to the lunar surface. I think it's critical that we combine remote observation, which can give us the broad context. So, observations from Sophia, coupled with other observations that look more broadly at the moon, can tell us regionally where we see those signatures. But then we need to also get on the ground and sample. So we have, as I mentioned, the Viper mission is heading that way. And, I hope that you can see that this is kind of an iterative approach. So, for instance, we're sending the Prime 1 drill to help us understand better how to approach it when we get Viper there. That's a more capable vehicle. So, answering the question exactly when we'll know is difficult. What I can say is that from a in situ resource utilization perspective, we have multiple approaches to extracting the water, multiple activities that are underway. And as we learn more, we'll know better which of those to develop further so that we can follow that approach. And it may be that there's multiple approaches because the water may be in different forms in different places. It may be more accessible. We also, again, have to learn just simply going up to the water, are we going to be disruptive to it to the point that we then can't use it? So, each one of these lessons helps us learn better how to query the lunar environment, the lunar surface on our next step moving forward.
Thank you. Next, we have Kenneth Chang from the New York Times. Kenneth? Hello, Kenneth. Are you on? Okay, before we go back to Kenneth, let's go ahead and take some Ask NASA questions. If you would like to ask a question using Twitter, please use the hashtag AskNASA. So we have a question from Liam Parker. asking what volume of water is found and does it suggest life may have been present on the moon previously? Sarah, can you talk about that?
Sure. So we covered a little bit about how much water is there. It's not a lot. And it's also water by itself is really not enough. There are other ingredients necessary for life. And the moon is frankly a really harsh place. The radiation environment, the lack of an atmosphere. There are lots of reasons we can talk about that where life is just not a thing that we think could have ever been possible.
Thank you. Let's try to jump back to the Q&A. Kenneth, are you available?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. So I just want to clarify a few things. In 2009, there was data from Chanjiao-1 about water in the sunlit areas. Is this a confirmation of that, confirming that it's water and not hydroxyl, but otherwise similar? And was there a confirmation of water in the deep craters from the L-Cross, or is it also that ambiguity between H2O and hydroxyl?
Hi, this is Casey. So I can take the first part of that. The observations from 2009 with M-Cube on the lunar surface were of the 3-micron band, which could not distinguish between hydroxyl and water molecules. What our detection today on the sunlit moon is saying is that at least part of what M-Cube detected is in the form of molecular water. Maybe somebody else can take the L-Cross part.
Sure. Let me jump in. L-Cross did in fact find water, but that was of course looking in a permanently shadowed region. So the difference here is that we're now seeing it in sunlight as well.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Christopher Cogdians from Sky News Canada.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, and it's Coquino, so it's an odd name. No worries. First, congratulations to the team. And then a question about the map, the water map of Clavius. And did you see any evidence of movement of these molecules over time? In other words, these apparent glass beads that are containing these stray water molecules, are they breaking down? Are they moving at all due to solar wind or micrometeorite impacts? So was this, do you see a process? Is the map dynamic at all, or is that something to look for in future missions?
This is Casey. Yeah, that is definitely something that we are going to be looking for moving forward with continuing observations with SOFIA. With the current data, it's just a snapshot in time of one location at one time on the moon. So we need, in order to understand the mobility of water and if it's moving and how it's really stored, we need more observations of different lunar phases to really be able to get at that mobility problem of water.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Leo Enright from Irish TV.
Thanks very much. I'm wondering about the source of this water. You mentioned one possibility as glass beads on the surface being impacted by the solar wind. Now, I'm afraid I'm showing my age with this question, but I was actually in the science support room in the Mission Control Center during Apollo 17 when they were at Shorty Crater. And I will never forget the scenes in that room when they found orange soil, because everybody in the room believed that that meant water, and they were devastated, many of them, though they're scientists, when they discovered, well, maybe it wasn't. I'm wondering, could those be exactly the beads that you're talking about?
Hi, this is Casey. So those are actually different kinds of beads. Those are volcanic beads that were erupted during a volcanic process on the moon. The glass beads that we're talking about are little beads that form when a micrometeorite impacts the moon and melts part of the lunar surface. It melts it and could either deliver the water or form water from pre-existing hydroxyl, which then cools to form a little, what we are calling little glass beads. So there's the ones that they found on Apollo and the ones that we're talking about here are different beads. We do think that the Apollo glass beads like Apollo found may concentrate water, and hopefully we can do observations of the Apollo 17 site to possibly detect water at that location with SOFIA.
And if I may cheat and ask a follow-up, I'm particularly interested in the instrument that you were using. It's my understanding that it was designed and built by the Andor company in Belfast in Northern Ireland. Is that correct?
I'm going to pass this one on to Nassim.
Are you talking about the instrument that made this discovery on SOFIA? No, that was made.
Yes, the CCD device. I understood it was built by Andor.
Well, I will have to get that specific information from the project, but the instrument itself was made in the U.S. by a U.S. institution.
Okay.